welcome to Facing the Nation for August 30th, 2024. It is always a privilege to be with you. As I always say when the program starts, call up a neighbor, call up a friend, tell them that Facing the Nation is on and you can't afford to miss today's show. Of course, you can follow us on our social media platforms, the People's National Congress Reform page on Facebook, our APNU page on YouTube. And the APNU AFC page on Facebook as well. Call up a neighbor, call up a friend, and of course, on your local TV, you will get us on channel 6. So call up a neighbor, call up a friend. You know that the program time is never enough, and today my guests, we have lots of things to talk about because of course being the government that we have and all the things that are happening, there's so much to talk about. So without any delay, I want to introduce today's guest, who is none other than the regional chairman of Region Number 10, Mr. Darren Adams. Welcome to Facing the Nation.
Hi, Shanieka. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be back on Facing the Nation.
Yes, it's always a privilege to have you here, and our discussions are always quite frank, and we're always out of time. So today, I'm going to be pushing these questions in very early so that we can keep it rolling and see how much we can deal with the time that we have. There is the big talk happening right now. We see the pump and scene and all the theatrics that are happening at your end with the government. There is this new project on board of them redoing, or according to them, doing the Linden to Soesdyke highway, something that we knew since 1992 that should have been done, and project funds were there to get that road done then. And we know that it was the PPPC who neglected to do the Linden to Soesdyke highway in 1992, despite the project funds were allocated. And to date, we don't know what would have happened with that money, but we're probably still paying the loan for that project. But let's talk about, your take on this new project. I see it is to a tune, I believe, of 161 million US dollars. Let's talk about that.
So, Shanieka, again, it's always a pleasure to be on your program. From the onset, we know that, and as you rightfully said, all of these projects were concepts of the PNC. Whether you speak of the Harbor Bridge, the Linden Soesdyke Highway, these are all projects, of course, that were initiated by the People's National Congress-led coalition government. We're in our close to the ending of the fourth year of this government. They inherited all of these projects because when you look at the dates when the feasibility studies were completed, it was during the period 2015 to 2020, whether it's the Linden Soesdyke Highway, the bridge across the Demerara here at Linden. In fact, if you check our manifesto, you will see all of these projects. But if you do a comparison and you check the People's Progressive Party manifesto, nowhere in there will you see a project like the Wismar Mackenzie Bridge. In fact, I know your viewers would have heard me say, and even we discussed it, where they never wanted the road from Linden to Lethem to be constructed. It was only when we took office, we ensured that we engaged the UK government and funding came. But specifically to the Linden Soesdyke Highway, we would have seen, and you rightfully mentioned, back in, I think it was 1968, it was the PNC that commenced the construction of the Linden Soesdyke Highway. They laid the foundation for that vital transportation route. Years after, when in 1988, I think it was 20 years after, because it was given a lifespan of 20 years, again, the government then, PNC, left the monies. They did another feasibility study and monies were left. Of course, when the PPP took office, they refused to continue with the projects, like they are doing many of the coalition projects here, the synthetic track, the farm to market road. They, of course, scrapped all of those projects. And so it was the APNU, when it took back office in 2015, began the feasibility study and started to advance that project and secured funding for the upgrading of that close to 60-year highway. And so in 2018, the feasibility study was done by SRKN Engineering, and efforts were made to secure funds without oil money. Of course, we lost office power in 2020, and it is now, after 4 years of this government being in power, with all the accidents that occurred on the highway, with how it has deteriorated over particularly over the past 4 years, things have gotten worse. We've seen a lot of accidents occur. And on the eve, or we can say close to a possible snap elections, we see all of these projects now rushing through. You just saw yesterday the announcement of free crossing on some of the infrastructure that is there. But I want to let people know that while we welcome the project, our preference was for a 4-lane highway to be there to facilitate smoother traffic flow. But it appears as though the current government is not in support of that they are pursuing a 2-lane. And so when we take power, I'll say this, that we have already gotten the commitment, and it was sanctioned by the leader and the central executive, that we will ensure that a 4-lane highway is done there on the Linden Soesdyke Highway. That is a part of our commitment. And then what it will do is ensure that we improve and ensure safety for commuters who will be traversing that corridor there. So that is what I wanted to let persons know, that while they are doing a 2-lane, we are committed that we will, of course, ensure that 2 more lanes are added, because we want to ensure that traffic is flowing in one direction to prevent head-on collision and so on from occurring in the future.
All right. Now, last year we had an in-depth talk. I know it is about that time of the year where the budget comes in focus, particularly at all levels, but in the region, there's usually a lot to be done. Last year, we had an in-depth conversation about what you would have proposed to be in the 2024 budget, and, where you were hoping things would go. Let's just take a look back at, I know we talked about a lot of the things that were proposed then. Did the PPP government, did they allow for many of those things to go through in the 2024 budget that we had this?
Well, Shanieka, unfortunately, let me say this to you. Many of the transformational projects that we would have ensured that we place strong justification to them, so that when they meet the Ministry of Finance, they would, of course, with the technical people, being allowed to go through and being approved. Unfortunately, many of those projects were removed from our budget. I speak here of the RDC building, for example. We have over 100 employees here, all operating in this space. And the government consecutively, from 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, did not approve a new RDC building for us. It goes against the backdrop that, one, the fire department has failed this building. They said clearly it is unsafe, it is unfit. We have seen in the finance department and the accounts department where sewage backs up into the office space. Recently, we had a flood here in Central Mackenzie. The entire ground floor was flooded out. And the government want to ask the question, how does a government that cares, that says it cares about the people, treat those even who are under their direct employ in such manner? And so we once again will be submitting all of these projects to central government. We believe that Region 10, like is occurring in regions 4 and 7. We are being treated unfairly in the area of allocation of resources. Many of the money that you will hear being mentioned is actually employment costs, and so it does not form part of the bigger capital program. And so we can only hope. I am not optimistic because they have denied us it for 4 years. Maybe it's an election year, so we might be lucky. They will try to push through all of these projects. Right now at the RDC, we have close to 80 positions that they have refused to fill, 10 of them being senior positions. We don't have a DREO, we don't have an AREO. This is the only region that is being targeted like that. If the REO for some reason can't be in office, there is no AREO or DREO to continue the work of the region. And so many of those positions have been left vacant, and they are refusing to fill it. Unlike what occurred during the period of the coalition government, where we ensured we employed our people, we trained our young people through the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service. We employed them. We always ensured there was a plan of transition for the programs that we were running, whether it's through NDMA, whether it was through the PCA, the Patient Care Assistant Program. We always ensure, whether it was through ICT, we ensured that there was always a place for young people. And I know that they have been spreading this narrative, this propaganda that a coalition government will suspend the 10-day workers program. I want to say that it is a blatant lie. What we intend to do is to train those people. We will increase their salary. We will ensure that they have NIS and they have other benefits. And we will ensure that there's a well-structured program for them so that they're drafted into permanent employment.
Correct. And that's what's needed, because doing a part-time work for 10 days with $40,000 in this economy, it must be said that it can do absolutely nothing. Permanent employment is definitely needed when we talk about the 10-day workers. Still on the budget. So basically what happened for this budget, which was 2024, we did not see those projects coming in. I know that you just mentioned that you will be replacing some of those projects into the 2025 budget. But what were, I know you usually do consultations when you're preparing your budget. What was those consultations like?
All right.
This time around?
So every year, as you know, and you correctly said, the RDC and the councillors, we work diligently to ensure that our budget and the submission is consistent with the consultation we would have had on the ground with our people, whether it's in Kokwani, the Berbice River, and all the communities there, Waironi, Gate, Roy, Deville, whether it's at Rockstone, whether it's at Rivers View in the Essequibo River. Our budget is premised on the consultation we would have had with our people on the ground. And so it is not a case where we sit in the office and just write up or draft stuff. We have had consultation with every sector. At the RDC, there are 5 programs, admin and finance, and the RDC building falls under that program. In the area of health, we of course deal with the issue with health workers and health facilities, and we tie in the Upper Demerara Hospital and of course the Linden Hospital complex, which falls under the Ministry of Health. We deal with agriculture, ensuring that we put programs that will empower food security in the region. We currently import over 70% of our food, and we ensure that we try to make available to those farmers technical support. So our budget surrounds that. In the area of public works, we deal with drainage. Many of the persons who we have been engaging with, they said to us, listen, this year we would like for emphasis to be placed on drains. We are seeing the government doing roads. But they're quickly becoming compromised because this is a hilly sand and clay region, because there is no runoff for the water. Many of the roads that they did in the 2023-2024 period have become compromised and quickly damaged. All of the footpaths. And so the emphasis, and based on what the people said, they said we want to focus on drains as against just roads only. And so that is where we would have focused. We made
Mm-hmm.
our submissions, and this goes for both Kokwani and Linden. Outside of that, the more bigger projects, we would like to see central government focus and continue the road from Millie's hideout to the Berbice River. The leader of the opposition was in the Berbice River, and
Yeah.
these are the same projects that the people would have made mention to him. We had proposed since 2021 for a secondary school to be built in the Berbice River at Wiruni. It was
Yeah.
approved for funding this year, but I can say to you that nothing has started as yet. In fact, my the latest report I just got is that on the capital program, we are only at 32%, and we're heading to September. And
Mm-hmm.
under the current, we're at 61%. Now, I want to make it clear to the public, because the government at times would use the propaganda machinery to say that the people of Region 10 are not utilizing resources and funds and they're sending back money. But over the past years, I want to make it clear that the government, with one hand, they have cut the request that we would have made, billions of dollars for support to communities here in Region 10.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important that people understand that all monies coming to the region are sent to the regional executive officer.
Mm-hmm.
It does not come to the regional chairman or councillors. And so the REO, it's important that they know too, he is hired by the president, and he can only be fired by the president. There's not a situation where the council can vote to have him removed or apply the necessary pressure. What
Mm-hmm.
we do here is representation and craft policies, and it is up to the administration of the day to execute. And I can say to you, based on the percentage that I would have just given to you and many of the projects that have been removed from the budget, the government is not supportive, and they're not acting and serving the best interests of the people of Region 10, because many of those transformational projects that we propose, they have
Mm-hmm.
turned a blind eye on those projects. There's several others. Farm to water. We wanted to help farmers. We wanted to ensure that they had monies. We crafted a policy document on same. It has completely been ignored, and they have instead focused on doing what is called handouts,
Mm-hmm.
giving hampers and cash grant to selective people. Um, and so what that does, in essence, is that it doesn't empower our people. It makes you dependent on them. It leaves you in a perpetual state of dependency. We will empower you. And of course, our desire here at the RDC is to ensure that you get the resources, get the training. And I believe that we can only achieve that with a coalition government in place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I note that there is, you mentioned somewhere when we were talking about the synthetic track. Let's talk about where that is. I mean, the project was started under the coalition. As far as I knew, then it was not a lot to be done to complete the project, but I know there are complaints that that project is not completed. With that being said, that not being done, we know that there was a move to rehabilitate. I believe it's the Linden Sports Complex area there, and we're hearing that that as well is still in shambles. Let's talk about that in the sports infrastructure in the region.
So Shanieka, I like to ask the question to the public, and I know many of them are on the live. And I visited every community across this region.
Mhm.
And I asked them, name one transformational project that has occurred from 2020 October to present. This government passed a 1.146 trillion budget. It's 5 times what the coalition left. Yet, there has been not one successful project
Mhm.
on their part that they have done. And even those projects that they inherited, they have slowed them down, and they have
Mhm.
refused to complete them. One would have thought this is the talent basket for the country, Region 10. We would have seen how they expedited road work and synthetic track in other parts of the country, Region 3. Why wouldn't any government who claims that they are genuine about the interests of the people of a particular region, more so the talent basket for this country, we have presented to them more Olympians than any other region.
Correct.
Yet the
Correct.
synthetic track remains incomplete. There has not been one sports facility that has been completed from 2020 October to present. Not one. There has not been one school that has been completed from 2020 to now. Within just 4 years of the coalition, we were able to complete the Christianburg Primary School. We were able to complete the Bamia Nursery School. We started the feasibility study for the Bamia Primary School. Unfortunately, there were some issues with the consultant, and that had to be retendered. They have now received the school. They can't complete it as yet. There has not been one project that they have completed. And so I believe that while I will mention these now, I hope that it will trigger them, because this is the direction that we are going in. And if they don't do it because we're a few months away, the coalition government will deliver. So I speak here of the Millie's Hideout Road. We will complete it. We will put it back in the budget. We had allocated 300 million. They refused to complete it. The upgrading of the airstrip here at Linden. We have the second best airstrip in the country. And one would have thought by now, with the announcement of the Linden Soesdyke Highway, that you would have started to see them investing in the airstrip. So that if you have to do emergency flight out, if goods and services still have to come into the region, those are the proposals that we have been submitting to them. 300 million remains in the Linden Enterprise Network that the David Granger administration would have injected there for small business. They have refused to constitute a board so that money can go to small businesses. And so many of the projects we propose and we have been discussing and writing them on, they have refused to do them. So we will, of course, put these at the top of our agenda: the Linden to Kokwani Road improvement, the bridging of the Berbice River at Kokwani there. These are all projects that we submitted to them. And of course, many of them, they have turned a blind eye on. We will, of course, if it is not done in 2025 under them, in the few months that are remaining, as soon as we get into office, we will ensure that those things are placed back on the as a top priority, the Bertram College of the Public Service, the call center. You heard a who and a cry that they invested money. We're the ones that pumped 119 million into the call center in 2019. And we handed it over to them. All they had to do was look for an investor to ensure that work is done there and young people are employed. I can say to you, they boasted that we're going to get 300 persons there by 2023. Right now, the doors are closed. If you have 6 persons in there, you have a lot. Another failed project, just like the fiber optic cable, just like the one laptop per family, just like the packaging plant. All of the projects that the People's Progressive Party are doing countrywide or regionally, they have failed. And so none have taken off, despite they received an economy that was growing by over 45% in 2020, and the economic foundation was laid for them. They have blatantly ignored Region 10 and instead continue to target us strategically and intentionally.
All right, so none of those projects were completed. You touched a little on it as well earlier, but I want us to zoom in on that, because I remember visiting Linden maybe about a month and a half or two ago when you would have had those floods. The situation there, and even when we visited some of the pathways that were done, how they were falling apart. What have they done rehabilitation, for instance, to those pathways, and what is the current state of the drainage situation? Because we saw that there was a lot of work to be done in terms of the drainage. When we went in there during the flood, we then saw, they were running in to do some drainage work at the time. Where are you at this time?
So
in that regard,
let me make this clear, and I want to just back up a bit. In 2021, we as a body, as a region, of course, we like to be proactive. And so what we did is we listed all of the critical outfalls that we thought the government should focus on. And we did this through the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, NDIA. And so we made submission of all the critical outfalls that they should focus on in anticipation of the rainy season. And we said to them, if you do work now during the dry season, it will minimize flooding, especially if there's a combination of high tide and rainfall. You might not be able to prevent it 100%, but it would be minimal, the effects of it. They ignored that entire proposal that we submitted, and only after the heavy rainfall came, flooded out the people of Old Carcara, Nycadac, and other areas, did we see them run in Central Mackenzie area, etc. Mind you, they had just spent over $70-something million to do cleaning around Central Mackenzie because independence activities were held here. Few days after heavy rainfall, the entire commercial zone.
For some reason, we look like we've lost the chairman. Now, he was basically talking about that. We went to Linden a few weeks ago, where the conditions that caused the flooding appear to practically be the drain in drainage system in those areas. And as he was explaining, those concerns were raised, and all the stuff were supposed to be dealt with. But the government, in their grand style as usual, they refuse to do what was asked of them at the time. I do believe we got him back.
Yes. Sorry about that. Of course, once you start letting loose, they will start to disrupt your internet connectivity, blackout, and all sorts of things will come. But we're gonna get the truth out. And so we wrote them. We submitted to them. We proposed to them that an NDIA office be built here. $22 million. We managed to make representation, and we heard that the funding was approved. Shanieka, 2 years after, the NDIA office cannot be constructed here. But to get back to what I was saying, so we engaged the office of the Prime Minister. He's head of the Civil Defense Commission. And we said to him, listen, people in Central Mackenzie, businesses were affected. Can you come and let's meet with them so that we can discuss compensation? Farmers were affected in West Watuka to date, while he had promised to do it. And he's a Lindener. He has refused to convene that meeting. And so many of the businesses had to count their losses. But I promise you that we still have it on the agenda. To the people of Linden who are listening, that is number one on our agenda. Should a meeting be convened with the Prime Minister? Compensation. We saw that in 2021 when Region 6 suffered similarly. They received $1 billion from the CDC. This year's budget, $7 billion has been allocated for Civil Defense Commission for flood disaster relief measures. Why is it that Region 10, when it comes to Region 10, the only thing that you can deliver to the people as relief is a black bucket, a pack of soap powder, and a bottle of bleach. But when you go to Lethem, you give 600 families $1 million each. You give other areas, when they had the looting or the protest action and persons lost their egg ball and Kalori, each one of them got $500,000 and $1 million. But when it comes to Region 10, you continue to deny them, but you claim that this is one Guyana. I say to our people, do not be fooled. We will continue to press and make representation for you, because there is millions of dollars sitting in the account there in the treasury that you too should be able to benefit from.
I want us to talk a little about training. I know that there was a situation, and I'm checking on this because I think I saw only last week where you had some Lindeners who would have trained to be nurses, but it seems that training was done out of the region. What is the position with the training school for nurses in Linden currently?
So I think we discussed this, and I just want to give you an update on it indeed. So you know that 2021, the government took a decision to suspend the nursing school year 1 here in Region 10. They allowed training to continue in Regions 1 to 9. And I firmly believe that it was a direct attempt to target our nurses here. Maybe they felt that too many Lindeners are being empowered. But that structure that the coalition government left, where we were training nurses, whether it was in the patient care assistant program or in the professional and the nursing assistance program, they of course suspended it. Many of the nurses would have invested their monies in those medical books, in their nursing gear. And if you know anything about nursing books, you know it's pretty expensive. Principle of Anatomy and Physiology, Fundamental of Nursing, all of these books are expensive books. And so they suspended the program, sent home all the young people. They told them that if they attempted to apply in Georgetown at the nursing school there, or in any other region, Berbice or any other way, they were going to be blacklisted. And so they were targeting them. Eventually what they did, they called back 6 persons who were on the program. But apparently whoever was doing the recruitment was looking for specific names, because persons who were called back were names like Dindilal and other names that sounded, had a particular sounding. And so they were targeting them. However, fast forward to 2024, recognizing that their back are against the wall, we saw them take steps to bring in nurses from Bangladesh. They brought in nurses from Cuba, giving them jobs while denying Lindeners and Guyanese the opportunity to train. They continue to frustrate those nurses. And so what eventually was occasioned is that you have now a case where over 200 nurses left Region 10 for the UK for greener pastures. You had 30 doctors who resigned under this government and went to work in the mining sector, in the gold sector. Imagine that, doctors resigning. And so there's now chaos. They brought a guy there named Rudy Small who started to target doctors, send them letters to vacate the doctors' quarters, and they started to apply the pressure from every angle. Recognizing that this year possibly is an election year, they hurriedly did an online program, and they started now to send out applications to now fast track those employment opportunities, so that they can say that they are creating jobs once again in the nursing sector. However, our people are not stupid. They know what the government is doing. One of the things that it's unfortunate that all of the nurses that had institutional knowledge about the health sector, they have left. And so those who are there right now, they are under severe pressure with a combination of drug shortages and not being given the tools to work with. Of course, it's a frustrating environment. And so many of them are currently looking to escape from the hardship that this government has brought on them. But nothing much has changed. They're now trying to do a online program and practically try to force the practical sessions onto them and try to compact the entire session maybe into 6 months or the remaining time that they have in office. And so, you know, it's just an unfortunate situation. So many of those programs have practically collapsed. I told you about the NDMA, where they sent home all those young people that were employed there, removing close to 100 million out of the region. They never continued the patient care assistant program that Valda Lawrence had initiated under the Ministry of Health. They closed the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service down and sent home all of the young people. And so nothing is happening in Region 10. The call center that they boasted about, that persons are receiving 90,000 and 80,000, all of the young people have walked off of the call center because they were being paid actually $2,000 and the labor laws were being breached. This government, again, Shanieka, has not done a single project that you can consider transformational to the people of Region 10. They had a big opening ceremony for agro-processing plant at Wutuko. I understand it has been closed for the past couple of months. Nothing being done. And so Region 10 is feeling the blunt of the vindictive nature of the People's Progressive Party. We have seen in the public assistance program, the most vulnerable people are being removed. During our
Yeah.
tenure, we increased the program. We increased it from 250 to 800. They came in and started to take people off of the public assistance program. Children, people who suffered stroke. And so they do not have your interest at heart in the housing sector. We have not seen much movement. Many applications are still there with people who
Mhm.
applied. But what we're seeing is people who are connected to them, smiling in photos, showing that they were placed way ahead of persons who had applied years ago. And so
Mhm.
they are now accessing the few house slots that are remaining in the system. Outside of that, the other big issue that I want to speak quickly of that has been a
Go ahead.
pain is
Mhm.
the land tenure issue. From 2020 October to now, the government has refused to resolve the land tenure issues, particularly in area of agriculture and business development. And
Mhm.
so those are, and that is along the key corridor, economic corridor, where they can issue lease land to investors, to people in the diaspora who want to come back to Region 10 and invest. They have refused. But what
Mhm.
we're seeing is when you look as to who is getting the land, it's people of one ethnicity, people who are connected to them, people who finance their campaign, etc. Those are the people who are benefiting. And so one of the things that we will ensure that we do is will ensure that those persons who have applied for land,
Mhm.
that we ensure that they get their lease, their titles, etc., so that they can, of course, invest in Region 10. The government continues to go snail pace on those
Mhm.
applications. And all is required is a signature from somebody higher up. They are refusing to, of course, empower our people in that regard.
Well, the complaint of lands has become a very sore issue. As you pointed out, the business sector, etc. We're also seeing in some of those very areas along the highway, we're seeing lands being taken back from certain persons and then handed out to big companies like some of those Chinese companies, different places. Because right now, when you drive along the Linden Soesdyke Highway, there is so much stuff you're seeing that is already cut down and dealt with. But when you go back, people are complaining that they've been in occupation of this place doing XYZ, and those lands are being taken back. So they are working, I would say, on land, but they are being very
Yep.
selective in how
Yes.
it's done. And it's the same complaint that persons in the mining sector as well are having. I know they're celebrating Mining Week right now. Usually, Region 10 is a place that they go to have celebrations for Mining Week. And miners are complaining bitterly about the discrimination being faced, although they have been occupying those lands, mining those lands, and those lands are being taken back.
Yep.
So it is something that is very worrying, very serious, that is happening currently in regards to the issuance of land, and particularly a lot in the mining sector. You know,
Yeah.
I want your region, like I would say for me, it was region number 2, region number 10, and region number 4 that we saw, heavy protests in regards to the teachers and, their quest for betterment in their packages and what was being received for them. Your region was one of those that were leading in the protest. We saw they went back in just before school closed, and we now see the issue that we're having in terms of an agreement being signed where teachers are the majority of teachers are poised to get about a 10% increase, and the other stuff that are being given away, of course, they are to select sets of teachers that are in a few. The numbers are few, so the majority of teachers would not benefit. How is the region taking that, given everything that is already happening in the region?
Well, I'll say this to you: it is, um, a, it's unfortunate. It's disrespectful. I
Mhm,
want to encourage persons to view the program that Kadaki Amsterdam had today with former Finance Minister
yes.
um, Winston Jordan.
Mhm,
And I want to encourage all teachers to view that program, particularly when Mr. Jordan was speaking directly to our teachers. But let me say this clear, that I believe the teachers union would have put forward a reasonable proposal for an across the board increase um, in salaries, and that was a part of their multi-year agreement.
mhm,
Of course, that program originally they requested from the period 2019 to 2023.
mhm,
Um, Initially, I think it was a 25% for 2019, a 20% for the subsequent years, 2020 to 2023. The government would have pressured the teachers and told them that they were only prepared to consider 2024.
mhm,
And despite they would have given up all of those years, the um, president of the union went ahead without the blessings of the majority of the teachers and their representative, and you would have signed an agreement. Now,
mhm,
it's unfortunate because uh, our teachers do a lot. They've invested a lot.
mhm,
We stand with them. I want them to know that whatever decision they decide going forward, that their
mhm,
elected officials would have already indicated that we will support them.
mhm,
Recognizing as well, Shanieka, that a few years ago, when the union would have put forward several proposals to the then APNU, PNC-led APNU coalition government, the current government, the People's Progressive Party, demanded and said that they hope they request 50% salary increase. And they were
mhm,
pressuring the coalition government, who at the time was not spending oil money.
mhm,
Um, and so I just want to say that we stand with our teachers. Um, our dedication to the education sector, it extends as well beyond the classroom. We know the challenges that teachers face, and we are
mhm,
ready to, of course, support them. I can say to them at this stage that we are prepared to increase their salaries way more than what the government is doing because we have the money. It is Bishop Edgel who said that we don't have a shortage of money. Money is
yeah,
not a problem. The fact that
mhm,
they could have came out yesterday and said that they're going to give free remove all tolls
cool,
from
from the
all the
bridge.
bridges in the country tells you that
Mhm,
these people have money. But again, they're playing politics. And guess
mhm,
what? Guess who's going to be benefiting the most from those from the removal of fees from the bridges? The large trucks that
mhm,
many of their friends, families, and favorite own, because they're the
mhm,
ones who have to pay large sums to cross the
correct,
bridge here at Wismar. And
correct.
so the small man, well, $60 is the fee to cross here. I think it's $100 at the Demerara
At the
Harbor Bridge.
Demerara Bridge.
The
Mhm,
persons who will benefit from this are those who are connected closely. They do not want to pay the toll. They do not want to pump those monies into the tongues and so that they can do maintenance work. I'm waiting to see how would maintenance work be conducted on the bridges, etc. Again, it is a political stunt,
mhm,
and it's another sign for me that we are getting closer to general and regional election. They're pulling all kind of cards out. As the leader said, they flick and hope that they land on their feet, and most times they land on their head. That is what has
mhm,
been happening.
mhm. I want us, as we're almost down to our time, but I want us to talk a little about the I know the impact of cost of living has been affecting everybody. Linden being peculiar in many for many reasons, because we know what the job situation is like. We talk about the victimization happening there, and how are you dealing with persons and interacting with them in terms of the talk about the effect of the cost of living, and how is it really affecting persons in your region.
So definitely, Shanika, if you see the conditions under which many persons are living, um, you know, it was I was listening to an interview, and I can say it to you right now, with the slightest shock of the average person's income, many of them will be forced into poverty. We've seen how the poverty ratio has gone back up.
Mm-hmm.
During our tenure, poverty decreased from 30 something thousand to about 17,000. I can say
Mm-hmm.
to you that many persons are now back at square one. Should the
Mm-hmm.
average person who lives paycheck to paycheck, and that number is high,
Mm-hmm.
lose their job by the end of September, by October, they will be experiencing poverty. And so the
Mm-hmm.
government has not put any measures. Those that they have attempted to do, clearly it has not been working to address the issue with the high cost of living. We have seen how the price of goods and services has increased. The only thing that does not increase significantly is people's salary. And
Mm-hmm.
so some of the things that I know that we, of course, will do and activate within the first 100 days is one, fair distribution of cash grants. We have said that. We will
Mm-hmm.
ensure that we inject money into the system so that our people can get. In Region 10, when cash grants are being distributed, it is done quietly to PPP people only. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen many persons still with the pink slip. When they go to communities here, like Region 10 here, that they know support the opposition, the
Mm-hmm.
criteria changes. You have to show proof of ownership of your house to get funding.
Mm-hmm.
When they go to Region 3 and other regions where the ID card persons are benefiting. And so persons are finding it hard to survive. I can say that to you. And it
Mm-hmm.
is compounded because, one, they have emasculated the entire situation by strangling us in the area of us trying to become food secure.
Yeah.
Many in the and so in the Berbice River, where we could get produce coming out and you can get them cheap, they have refused to construct the road there. I went to the Berbice River. I saw vegetables. I saw watermelon fruits. I saw everything. Beef selling very cheap. And
Mm-hmm.
once the government completes that road, it will empower our
Mm-hmm.
people here and it would reduce that food bill. But the government, of course, wants to keep our people dependent. They want to, of course, ensure that their supporters alone are empowered. And so
Mm-hmm.
it is affecting our people. It's a daily struggle. People can't take care of their families. And of course, it is having a ripple effect, negative effect, of course, on many of the people here in the region.
um I think I touch many of the issues. I don't know if there is anything that I missed that I want to give you the opportunity to, talk about before we wrap up.
Well, Shanika, again, we're in the budget cycle. We have submitted the different submission. As I said, it flowed from the consultation we had with our people on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not optimistic because the government continues to deny the people of Region 10 um, the requests that we made.
Mm-hmm.
Vehicles, for example, so that our technical officers, they have denied our elected officials, councillors, access to vehicles so that we can go out and monitor projects. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people oftentimes don't understand the challenges that we face here. Um, so We are, however, still going to be on the ground doing our work. I know for sure, and as I said earlier, that it has become increasingly evident that the People's Progressive Party government, they are growing more desperate
Yeah.
um, in its attempt to sway the opinions of the electorate.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to come throwing all kind of wild cards out
Mm-hmm.
um, as they face, of course, an impending reality of being
Mm-hmm.
voted out of office. I want to say to our people to remain vigilant, to
Mm-hmm.
understand that just like we did during the period 2015 to 2020, where we promoted decentralized services, which in terms led to employment of our people, we
Mm-hmm.
will promote decentralized services so you do not have to leave Region 10 to access whether it's a passport office
Mm-hmm.
or many of the other services. We will ensure that the people-centered development vision that the
Mm-hmm.
leader spoke of, that he can't, of course, mention the other points and areas that he wants to promote because they're stealing all of the ideas and repackaging it. And so we have to conceal it at this point until, of course, we elections are called. But we will continue to make representation to ensure that resources are allocated equitably, to ensure that the development projects that we submit, that we pressure them to complete, and if they do not do it, we will do it, to ensure
Mm-hmm.
that the employment services that are pending right now for the past 4 years, where they are refusing to employ over 80 persons at the RDC, 10 of them being top positions here, DREO, AREO.
Mm-hmm.
We will, of course, ensure that we hire our people and ensure that there are structured programs, particularly for our young people, whether it is in sports, whether it is in music. Um, we will ensure that we promote and train them to ensure that they not only receive temporary jobs, but they
But
receive
permanent.
permanent jobs during our tenure.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Chairman. I think this time round we were able to basically touch on, all the major issues that we wanted to talk on today. So I want to thank you once again for, always taking up the challenge to come and talk about what is happening in your region. And I want to encourage you to continue to push, and fight for your people of your region as you continue to, put out policies, vision, plan, and speak to the persons in your region
Yeah.
as we move forward.
Thank you, Shanieka. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thank you. All right, folks. It is always good to have these discussions, and it is our aim and our duty on facing the nation to ensure that you are appraised with all of the information coming from every corner of our country, because we want you to continue to hold this government accountable, and we want to ensure that when the time comes that you have the information at your disposal to do what is right come the next regional and general election, to ensure that you secure your future and that of your children and their children in this country. I want to, just before I close, I have my operator pull up a flyer. We have to continue to support events that will, of course, raise funds for us to do the things that we must do. On screen, you're looking at the People's National Congress Reform will be presenting the Emerald Splash at Georgetown to Linden bus excursion and pool party. We have the excursion tickets, which of course includes the transportation from Georgetown to Linden and back for five, and of course entry into the event for just $5,000. And if you are going up with your own transportation or you're living in Linden, the entrance fee to the event is just $1,000. This will be held at the Toucan Complex poolside in Amelia Ward. So I want you to keep looking out for this event. It is on Sunday, September 22nd. It is an event that you don't want to miss. It is your opportunity to have some fun, to support a worthy cause, and of course, have a visit to the region that we just extensively spoke about, to visit Region 10. So make it a date, tell a friend, tell somebody. Tickets, of course, will be available at Congress Place. So you can check us out for those tickets. And, tell somebody, buy a few tickets to other persons. If you can't come, you're living overseas and you want to support the venture, you can do so as well. I want to thank you once again for, of course, being with us on Facing the Nation. Next week, I will be here, same place, same time, and we'll be having a very informative discussion with someone from another region. We'll send out those flyers very early so that we can continue the discussion, continue to keep you informed on the issues so that it will inform your decisions and that of your persons that you have in your influence. I want to thank you again for joining. This is the last Friday in August. School reopens next week for many of the students going to school. I want to wish them the best as they return to a new school term, and we're entering a new month. I do hope that the weekend goes well and the new week brings nothing but blessings. Do have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.